the heart of the Dupree household, beneath its polished exterior and apparent stability, lies a web of secrets, betrayals, and simmering tensions. This story delves into the psychological turmoil of June, Leslie, and Ted, exploring the destructive power of hidden truths and the devastating consequences of moral compromise. As June uncovers a horrifying secret about Leslie's past, the balance of power shifts, igniting a volatile clash of fear, anger, and manipulation. Every glance, every unspoken word, and every decision becomes a catalyst for conflict, pushing the characters to the brink of their emotional limits. This is a story of inner conflict, shattered trust, and the relentless pressures that expose the rawest, most dangerous aspects of human nature. June felt the oppressive weight of the room pressing down on her as she carefully slipped the documents into her leather satchel. The photographs, the hidden notes she had stumbled upon in the Dupree family archives, were more than just evidence of a heinous act. They revealed a truth few could even imagine. Leslie, the man long trusted as the family's pillar, had committed murder to cover up a catastrophic mistake. A surge of fear mingled with a forbidden satisfaction pulsed through her veins, quickening her heartbeat, but June knew she could not act rashly. One misstep could erase all the evidence, or worse, transform her into a dangerous target in the eyes of Ted and Leslie. Leslie entered the room at that precise moment, unaware that June had uncovered his secret. His mind was taut with anxiety, preoccupied with family matters, yet he sensed an unseen scrutiny pressing down on him. June only needed a subtle gesture, a hint of a glance, or a whispered reference to a single detail, and Leslie would instantly blanch, sweat beading on his forehead, hands trembling as though the floor itself might swallow him whole. He stood there, helpless, caught in a silent interrogation that threatened to expose everything. And Ted, ever meticulous, would notice. Ted's eyes, usually so composed, now carried a flicker of suspicion, a silent acknowledgement that something was amiss. Ted, rational and cautious by nature, began to notice the cracks in Leslie's explanations. The man he had trusted implicitly could conceal an atrocity of such magnitude. Suspicion gnawed at him, an insidious storm within his mind, making him regard Leslie with a coldness previously foreign to him. June, wielding absolute power in secret, relished the subtle control. She did not need to speak aloud, a mere look, sharp and precise, forced Leslie to betray his internal panic. The atmosphere in the room thickened to near suffocation. Speculation, doubt, and personal motives intertwined into a chaotic web. Leslie wrestled violently with his conscience. Part of him longed to regain control, yet fear of exposure rendered him nearly paralyzed. June observed him, sensing every faltering heartbeat, every shiver, and a twisted thrill of victory surged within her. Yet beneath that satisfaction, a persistent unease lingered. What if Ted acted unpredictably? What if the delicate balance tipped against her? Ted's instincts sharpened as he observed the interplay between June and Leslie. Suspicion blossomed into a simmering anger that wormed into every thought, forcing him to weigh decisions of extraordinary difficulty. Confront immediately or investigate meticulously? Each choice carried immense risk. One false move could dismantle the Dupree family entirely. June began to envision her strategy. Silence meant dominion. She could compel Leslie and even Ted to act according to her unspoken will. Yet with that power came an unbearable burden. Any miscalculation could transform her into the family's greatest enemy. The negative reactions escalated. Leslie, desperate, tried to mitigate the pressure, but every effort seemed futile against June's quiet mastery of the situation. Betrayal, once wielded as a weapon, now constricted him like a vice. Ted, torn between pursuing justice and preserving the family's image, oscillated between cautious restraint and impulsive judgment. Every move, every thought, was fraught with danger. In the following days, tension remained unrelenting. June seized every minor opportunity to fortify her position, cornering Leslie, forcing Ted to examine his own decisions more critically. Leslie sank further into fear and despair, while Ted faced the moral quandary of balancing truth with preservation. Each character was now trapped in a relentless spiral, a vortex where trust had eroded entirely, and betrayal, suppressed rage, and unspoken secrets simmered dangerously close to the surface. June, Leslie, and Ted each harbored secrets, each driven by motives and fears, weaving a network of conflict impossible to untangle. The oppressive tension intensified with every passing hour. The family home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a pressure chamber. June, Leslie, and Ted navigated a minefield of decisions where even a minor misstep could unleash catastrophe. The interplay of power, suspicion, and desperation escalated to a fever pitch. Leslie teetered on the edge, his desperation eroding his composure, while Ted's internal conflict, between moral duty and familial loyalty, left him emotionally fractured. June's grasp on power was intoxicating but precarious. Each subtle action she took tightened the noose around Leslie's neck, reinforcing her dominance. Yet with dominance came vigilance. One slip could reverse the roles, making her the hunted instead of the hunter. Leslie's panic grew with each passing day, eroding his ability to think strategically, while Ted, positioned between truth and consequence, struggled to reconcile his moral imperatives with survival instincts. The threads of anger, betrayal, and inner conflict became the driving force behind every interaction. Each glance, each hesitation, each silent calculation contributed to the mounting tension, a slow-burning fuse poised to ignite. The Dupree family's legacy, reputation, and internal bonds were teetering on the edge of destruction. No one could predict the outcome, but one certainty remained: the convergence of fear, rage, and betrayal would leave none untouched. June, Leslie, and Ted were caught in a maelstrom where emotions were raw and decisions irreversible. Every movement, every thought, every nuanced gesture became part of a dangerous chess game. The simmering anger, the gnawing suspicion, the suffocating pressure created a climate in which no one could escape unscathed. The inevitability of conflict loomed over them, each step forward carrying the weight of potential ruin. As the days unfolded, the trio navigated this volatile landscape, each action sharpening the tension, each thought intensifying the stakes. June's power was absolute yet fragile, Leslie's desperation made him increasingly erratic, Ted's struggle with loyalty and justice created fissures in his resolve. The entanglement of fear, moral dilemmas, and the inescapable threat of exposure ensured that the situation could erupt at any moment, with devastating consequences for all involved. The Dupree household, once a symbol of stability and control, now existed as a crucible of betrayal, rage, and moral ambiguity. Each character's inner turmoil amplified the tension, and the invisible lines of power and suspicion became weapons in themselves. The interplay of motives, fear, and rage created a relentless pressure, a ticking clock counting down to an inevitable breaking point. No reconciliation seemed possible, no compromise safe, and every decision carried a shadow of irrevocable consequences. In this suffocating environment, June, Leslie, and Ted confronted the reality that their every choice could either preserve them or shatter the fragile equilibrium completely. The maze of lies, half-truths, and concealed motives ensured that each step forward was both a potential victory and a looming threat. The dynamics of control, betrayal, and suppressed fury became the lifeblood of their interactions, pushing them toward decisions that would irreversibly alter their lives and relationships. Ultimately, the room, the house, and the family itself became a theater of psychological warfare. June, Leslie, and Ted, each armed with their own fears and desires, maneuvered through a landscape fraught with danger and deceit. The simmering tensions, the gnawing suspicion, the moral compromises, and the raw, human anger coalesced into a crucible that left no one untouched, preparing the stage for a climactic confrontation that none could anticipate, yet all were inexorably drawn toward. As the days stretched on, the fragile equilibrium within the Dupree household continued to unravel. June, wielding the knowledge of Leslie's crime, felt the intoxicating weight of power, yet the burden of secrecy gnawed at her relentlessly. Every calculated gesture, every subtle hint of control, was both a shield and a weapon, forcing Leslie further into panic and driving Ted to the precipice of doubt and moral conflict. Leslie's desperation grew with each passing hour. He became increasingly erratic, haunted by the possibility of exposure and the irreversible consequences of his past actions. Ted, caught between justice and loyalty, struggled to reconcile his principles with the need to protect the family's fragile reputation, his inner turmoil manifesting in restless nights and tense, silent confrontations. The household had become a crucible of fear and suppressed rage, where trust had been obliterated and every interaction carried the potential to ignite catastrophe. The three of them, bound by blood, power, and secrets, navigated a landscape in which one misstep could shatter lives irrevocably. Beneath the veneer of civility, the tension thickened into a palpable force, each glance and unspoken thought laden with threat, each decision a test of endurance and moral resolve. In the end, there were no clear victors, only the lingering echo of betrayal, the corrosive weight of suppressed anger, and the inescapable knowledge that once secrets are revealed, nothing would ever be the same again. The Dupree family, once seemingly untouchable, now existed in a perpetual state of precarious unease, a silent battlefield where the human psyche itself became both weapon and casualty.